मैं थोड़ा आगे रह गया अभी।
पहले बीच में।
चल।
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the last lap session today on the important government schemes of 2025. So, as you all know, this is one of the more painful topics usually for CLAT, all of the details of the various schemes which come up. So, today we have all of the important schemes of 2025 for you. We have the Gyan Bharatam mission, we have the 20th anniversary of the Right to Information Act, and so on and so forth. So let's make a quick start. So Ananya and I will be doing the session together today. So let's make a start. I hope you have your pens and papers out. Let's make a start. So the first topic we have in front of us is the 20 years of the Right to Information Act. Okay. Now, all of you know that the Right to Information Act was passed in the year 2005. Okay. Now, the core question which usually comes up is the right to information in India a fundamental right, or is it simply a statutory right which is found in the RTI Act 2005? Okay. So while this right may have begun as a statutory right under the Right to Information Act of 2005, over time, the Supreme Court has interpreted this right into Article 21 as well as Article 19(1)(a). So, how has it done that? The Supreme Court has said that the right to information is vital for an informed citizenry and which is essential for a democratic setup in the country and for people to fully realize their right to live with dignity. A right to information is also inherent in the right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. Additionally, the court has also interpreted the right to information under Article 19(1)(a), which is the freedom of speech and expression. So the court said essentially that how can you effectively exercise your freedom of expression until you are knowledgeable, until you have the right information with you. So through that logic, the court interpreted the right to information as a part of the freedom of speech and expression as well. Okay, so with that backdrop, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the important slides. Now, I've already told you 2005 is when the Right to Information Act comes about, and it comes into force in October 2005. Okay, that is why we say that 20 years of the Right to Information Act have been completed this year. Okay, now let's first look at the last point or second last point here. There was actually a law before the RTI Act of 2005, and this law was called the Freedom of Information Act 2002. However, there were many flaws with this act. It stopped short of even declaring the right to information a right. It simply provided procedures for how citizens could access some information from the government, but it did not declare it to be a right. And there were other problems with this law as well. So that's a little bit beyond our scope for today. But what you have to remember is that the RTI Act of 2005 replaced the Freedom of Information Act 2002. Okay, so that is the important historical context. Now, before we move forward, we should know who is the Minister of Information and Broadcasting. Okay, so that's the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. This is right now held by a person who actually holds three different ministries, isn't it? So that is Ashwini Vaishnav. Okay, Ashwini Vaishnav is the Minister of Information and Broadcasting. So I'm just linking it to this topic because the word information comes in the name of the ministry, and it's the job of this ministry, number one, to popularize the information related to the government and its schemes, and all of the press releases are also issued under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Of course, the second aspect is the broadcasting part. And so film regulation, cable TV regulation, all of this also occurs under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Now, under the Act, one key thing I want to flag for you is the word here, that is citizens, right? I often flag for you in our legal sessions that you always have to see who is that person who has a particular right. So in case of the right to information, it is citizens who possess that right. And so under the RTI Act, it is clearly said that all citizens have the right to information subject to the other provisions of this Act. So this is why it is essential. You must remember that only citizens have the right to information under the RTI Act of 2005. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, this Act provides all of the details. So a lot of effort was made to make sure that this Act does not become toothless, right? That it actually becomes a method for citizens to gain information about the government. And in fact, to achieve that, there was a very important organization which was involved with the drafting and advocacy for the RTI Act of 2005. Can anyone tell me which organization that was? Yes, some of you have answered. It was MKSS. Okay, it was the MKSS led by Aruna Roy and Nikhil Dey. Okay, Aruna Roy and Nikhil Dey were some of the primary founders and leaders of this organization called MKSS. And a little bit of homework for you all is to find out the full form of MKSS. So this is an important NGO which had a key role in the drafting as well as advocacy for the RTI Act of 2005. Okay, now let's come to some of these details. So what is the time frame for giving an information after a request has been made? So this is 30 days, which you see right here. Okay. However, additionally, it is provided that if the information demanded relates to the life or personal liberty of somebody, then the information must be provided within 48 hours. Okay, so this is key. So who can file right to information requests? Citizens of India. How much time is there for a public authority to respond? 30 days to give the information. If it's a matter of life and death or personal liberty, then the information must be given within 2 days or 48 hours. Okay. Now, of late, there has been a lot which is written about how this Act is being implemented of late. Additionally, several amendments have also been made to the Act and the various rules under the RTI Act of 2005. These things have in effect hampered the right to information. Even today, the entire Central Information Commission only has 2 members. Okay, out of a maximum of 10 commissioners are possible, along with the 11th person being the Chief Information Commissioner. Okay, so before we move on to the amendments, this Act establishes the Central Information Commission, the CIC. So let's first go to that slide. So the Act creates the Central Information Commission, and the commission consists of the Chief Information Commissioner and 10 other Central Information Commissioners. So 10 is the maximum. It can be less than that as well. So imagine out of these 11 people, right now there are only 2 members of the Central Information Commission. Of course, the president will appoint on recommendations of a committee comprising the Prime Minister, the leader of opposition of the Lok Sabha, as well as a Union Cabinet Minister. Now, something interesting which has been changed. So let's now link it to our previous slide. So if you see here, there was an Amendment Act in the Constitution which changed the terms and conditions of service. There's an Amendment Act which changed the RTI Act of 2005, and it changed the terms and conditions of employment of the information commissioners at the central as well as state levels. So it allowed the central government to decide this through rules, and the central government shortened the tenure of the information commissioners from 5 years down to 3 years. Okay, so this is something to keep in mind. This has also been criticized as hampering the right to information. The last point on this slide is the DPDP Act, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which also indirectly amended the RTI Act and basically broadened the scope of the exemption from disclosure under the RTI Act to include all sorts of personal information. Basically, what it said is that if giving information to a citizen would disclose somebody's personal information, this would be a ground for the information authorities to deny that particular information. So earlier there were safeguards for this, and any information denied to a citizen would be one that could have been denied to members of Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, and other legislative bodies. So essentially, earlier it said that if a particular information has to be denied to a citizen, it can only be denied if it can also be denied to the legislature. Okay, all right. So let's move on to our next slide here. So we've already seen the appointment, the tenure, and the composition of the Central Information Commission. Okay. Now, as you know, the way this works is each public authority is supposed to have an information officer. So that is the person who gives the first response on an RTI request. Then there has to be an appellate body within every public authority or for a group of public authorities. And even once they also deny it, then you can go to the State Information Commission or possibly to the Central Information Commission. And of course, appeals from the CIC will go to the Supreme. Okay, so that is basically how it works. Now, right now, there is no Chief Information Commission. Okay, the last person to have held this job till September 2025 was Hira Lal Samaria. So that is one. Otherwise, the position is vacant as of now. The first Chief Information Commissioner was Wajahat Habibullah. Okay, so this is the additional piece of information that you should be aware of. Okay, the first CIC, Wajahat Habibullah. Current, it is vacant. The last one to hold it till now has been Hira Lal Samaria. Okay, so I hope this is absolutely clear to all of you. Now, moving forward, we don't have to get into it too much because we've discussed the Central Information Commission in detail. Okay, so similar structures are there. If the CIC is appointed by the president, the SIC will be appointed by the governor. So we do not need to get into it much more. Okay, so I hope these details related to the RTI Act are clear. What is important for GK? You have to know the first CIC. You have to know the organizations which advocated for RTI, primarily MKSS. You have to know which act it replaced, the Freedom of Information Act. You have to know who can file an RTI request, citizens, because citizens have the right to freedom of information or the right to information. Okay, so flagging those points, I've told you the name of the minister. I've told you its constitutional status as well. Okay, so let's now move on to our next scheme for the day, which is the National Education Policy. Okay, so it's been 5 years of the NEP. So now ma'am will take over to do this portion.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now, 5 years of NEP is important for 2-3 reasons this year. First thing, that naturally the new education policy has completed 5 years in July 2025. The second thing, that this particular policy proposes a particular language formula, which is known as a 3-language formula. It is obviously not new for this particular NEP, but it was just changed a little bit. It was initially proposed in 1968 through the first NEP. This, which was very rigid back then. In the 2020 NEP, the 3-language formula was made a little flexible. All right. But in spite of this, there were certain southern states who were reluctant to adapt to a 3-language formula, and they were still stuck on a 2-language formula. That is, they would only teach 2 languages. So that one particular state is Tamil Nadu, which is still adamant on teaching only English and Tamil in its schools, due to which the central government, under a particular scheme known as the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, did not disburse certain amount of money to the state of Tamil Nadu, which brought to the forefront the 3-language formula. All right. So for these two current reasons, the NEP becomes important. But naturally, when we look into the current part of it, we also look into the static part of it. All right. Okay. So just coming to the key points of the national education or the new education policy that you have to keep in mind. The first one being that it was launched in 2020. This year it has completed 5 years. This particular policy is the first education policy of the 21st century. The previous two policies, the first one was in 1968, the second one was in 1986. And after 1986, we have the third one now after a span of 34 years. All right. So after a span of 34 years, that is why this becomes a little more significant. All right. Just looking into the basics of it. The first one, 1968, on the recommendation of the Kothari Commission. The second one, no such commission that recommended it, but it was undertaken under the prime ministerialship of Rajiv Gandhi back then in 1986. And after that, we have the third one in 2020, which was recommended by K. Kasturi Rangan. All right. Now, there are two things that you have to keep in mind here, that this was in 2020. In 2015, along with the world, India also got in or brought in certain sustainable development goals into India. So the sustainable development goals, specifically the third one, the fourth sustainable development goal, the fourth SDG, talks about promoting quality education. All right. So the fourth one aligns with providing quality education and full literacy till 2030. So aligning with that goal, India undertook this NEP, which seeks to promote or bring about full literacy in the country by 2030. All right, in the next 10 years span. Now, to achieve this, India outlined certain changes in the entire educational sector. But before we get into that, just 2 or 3 key pointers that you have to keep in mind here. One thing, that the second NEP 1986, it changed the name of the education ministry. All right. In when we gained independence, the education ministry was known as the Ministry of Education. In 1986, it was changed to Ministry of Human Resource Development. All right. So the first change that NEP 2020 brought was that is changed the name of Human Resource Development back to Ministry of Education. All right. So Human Resource Development was again changed back to Ministry of Education. Then the second ideation or the second aim or objective that was brought in through the NEP 2020 was to increase the entire contribution of GDP to education. Now, when NEP 2020 was launched, the contribution of GDP to the education sector was a meager 2%. The government under NEP 2020 aims to increase the share of GDP in education to 6%. As of now, presently in 2025, it is approximately 4% that the government is investing in the education sector. All right. Okay. Then just quickly looking into the reforms, there are only two major leveled reforms that you have to keep in mind. One is at the school level and the other is at the higher education level. The school one is more important. The first is that it seeks to bring about a change in the curriculum structure from erstwhile 10+2 system to 5+3+3+4 system, which will obviously be for the age group of 3 to 5 years. The initial first 5 is 3 years of preschool plus classes 1 and 2, then 3 years classes 3 to 5, next 3 is 6 to 8, the 4 is 9 to 12. It also seeks to bring about or promote early childhood care and education at Anganwadi and preschool levels, which mostly in government schools was not available. Private schools had it, but government schools did not have it. That is why the government sought to include this in the 2020 education policy. Then special emphasis was laid on the mother language or on the use of mother language or regional languages for the children while imparting education up till class 5 compulsorily, and preferably also till class 8. All right. Now, this particular ideation is inspired from Mahatma Gandhi's education policy known as the Vardha scheme of 1937. All right, please keep in mind and please relate it to this. The Vardha scheme of 1937, and it was also known as Nai Talim. Okay, it was also known as Nai Talim. Please keep this in mind. And also NEP introduced vocational training, vocational education from class 6 level. All right. Okay. Then at higher education, the aim was to increase gross enrollment ratio to 50%, bring a multidisciplinary approach, promote multiple exit and entry with an academic bank of credits, meaning that it sometimes due to any XYZ reason, you tend to drop out of your higher education courses of 4 years, 3 years after 1 year or 2 years. Then because of your entire credentials already recorded in the academic bank of credits, you can come back to that particular course exactly from where you left it. Okay. Then for your undergraduate program, also regulatory and administrative changes were made, that they introduced HECI, Higher Education Commission of India, as one sole body which will now monitor higher education in India. All right. And Parak was also undertaken for till class 8 levels to better assess the performance of the students. All right. Okay, then the most important topic, which is the three language formula. It was for the first time brought in by NEP 1968 on the recommendation of the Kothari Commission. And this was a pretty rigid formula. A rigid formula meaning it specifically aimed to give or, it specifically aimed to make it compulsory for all the states in the country to have a three language formula in their curriculum structure. So for the northern states, it proposed, or northern states are the Hindi speaking states, the three language structure simply implied that you had to teach Hindi, you had to teach English, and you could teach any other third language. Northern states gave more preference to teaching Sanskrit. However, for the southern states, the three language formula implied that they had to teach compulsorily their regional language, which was whatever their local language was, English and Hindi. So it was from here that Tamil Nadu developed this reservation and did not opt for a three language formula and had its two language formula implemented till today. All right. However, this was changed through the NEP 2020, where this was made a little flexible in the sense that the states were free to choose any three language that they wished to while as their medium of instructions in school. All right, but they had to take up three language. The southern states were no longer, it was not made compulsory for the southern states anymore to compulsorily teach Hindi, but any three language could be chosen. But in spite of this flexibility, Tamil Nadu still did not opt for a three language formula. All right. Okay. Then coming to constitutional provisions related to education.
All right. Before we move on with the constitutional provisions, I just wanted to do a very quick revision with all of you related to languages. So remember, in India, which schedule of the Constitution lists the languages of India? It is the 8th schedule. And how many languages were there in it at the beginning of the Constitution? There were 14. And as of now, how many are there in that schedule? There are 22 languages. Okay, by various amendments, languages were added. For example, by the 21st Amendment, Sindhi was added. By the 71st Amendment, 3 languages were added, one of which was Nepali. I want you to link this to the topic of the unrest in Nepal, the swearing in of Sushila Karki, the Gen Z protest. So link it to this, that Nepali was added to the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. by the 71st Amendment alongside Manipuri and Konkani. Okay. And lastly, the 92nd Amendment added 4 languages. What were they? Bodo, Dogri, Maithili, and Santhali. Okay. So that's about the 8th schedule. Now, remember, does India have a national language? No. But Article 343 of the Constitution, which is found in Part 17, provides that the official language of the Union, that is to say, the Union government, shall be Hindi in Devanagari form. However, English may continue to be used for a certain time period, and then Parliament was given the right to extend the period for which English could be used. Lastly, they said that the international form of numerals would be used and it would not be the Devanagari form of numerals. This whole concept came about as a result of a compromise in the Constituent Assembly, which was called the Munshi Iyengar formula, named after K.M. Munshi and N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar. They together sat together and decided that, okay, India should not have a national language, should have an official language, and that too, it would be the official language of the Union, that would be Hindi, but English could continue to be used, and states could have their own official languages, and so on and so forth. So remember, Article 343 provides that the official language of the Union shall be Hindi in Devanagari form. But add on to this, we have to add on 1 or 2 key details to this. The date on which the Constituent Assembly of India adopted Article 343, whatever the draft article number was, the day on which these language provisions were adopted by the Constituent Assembly of India is today observed as Hindi Divas. Okay, what is that date? It is the 14th of September. Because on 14th of September 1949, these provisions were adopted by the Constituent Assembly. Remember, do not confuse this with Vishwa Hindi Divas, which happens on the 10th of January. Okay, so please be clear on all of these aspects related to language. So the languages in the 8th schedule can be called scheduled languages, or popularly they are also called official languages. Is English one of them? No. What is there in it? Hindi, Sanskrit, Urdu, Nepali, Bodo, Maithili, Santhali, Malayalam, Telugu, Tamil, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so please keep this in mind. The other category which exists is classical languages. That's not there in the Constitution. It's a category created by the Ministry of Culture. Okay, and how many today are considered classical languages? They are 11. Okay, what are classical languages which have, there are certain official criteria. But for ease of reference, classical languages are those which have their own systems of expression and a long history of literature in that particular language. So that's the easy way to remember it. Interestingly, the first classical language to be recognized was Tamil. It was not Sanskrit. Do not be confused by this. It was Tamil, the first language to be recognized as a classical language. Okay. So I think those, yes, last 1 or 2 things. Who is it that chairs the Committee of Parliament on the official language? So the Committee of Parliament on the official languages. It is none other than Minister of Home Affairs and Minister of Cooperation, that is Amit Shah. Okay, so please keep all of these details in mind. The last point before we proceed, since we are covering the NEP, who was India's first Minister of Education? That was Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. It's not Abdul, it is Abul Kalam Azad. He was India's first education minister, which is why on his birth anniversary, on the 11th of November, we observe the National Education Day. And who is India's current Minister of Education? It is Dharmendra Pradhan. Okay. So these things are important to know. when it comes to education. Let me just do for you also the constitutional provisions. So the right to education. Remember, earlier it was not there. So the Supreme Court, through some cases, interpreted it as part of the right to life under Article 21. Okay. However, the 86th Amendment Act of 2002 actually added the right to education in Article 21 capital A of the Constitution. So what does it say today? We have to remember the range of ages also. It says the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age of 6 to 14 years in such a manner as determined by law. Okay, so what is the age range? 6 to 14 years. What is the qualifier used for the education? It has to be free and it has to be compulsory. Okay, so 21A added by the 86th Amendment provides for free and compulsory education for children between the ages of 6 to 14 years. Okay, all right, perfect. Finally, this has been implemented by the RTE, the Right to Education Act. Okay, so that's the short name. What is the full name? Please do remember it, because of late, and actually even earlier, CLAT has gotten very interested in asking you the full forms of various enactments. So the actual full name of the RTE 2009 is the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act. Okay, in short, we usually call it the Right to Education Act, but the full name is the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act. Okay, so that is the constitutional background to the 86th Amendment. Remember, it not only added something to the fundamental rights, it also added something to the directive principles of state policy and the fundamental duties. So remember, these three parts of the Constitution come back to back. So part 3 of the Constitution, fundamental rights. Part 4 of the Constitution, directive principles of state policy. And part 4 capital A of the Constitution is the fundamental duties. Okay. Two questions related to this. From which country was our Constituent Assembly inspired to add a part on the directive principles of state policy? It was the Constitution of Ireland. And the second question, which amendment to the Constitution added fundamental duties, part 4A? It was the 42nd Amendment Act on the recommendation of the Sardar Swaran Singh Committee. Okay, so let's now come back. So as we saw, the 86th Amendment added Article 21A to Part 3. It added 51A Clause K to Part 4A. Okay, so that's in the fundamental duties part. So remember, education is free and compulsory by the state for children between the ages of 6 and 14 years. So what was added as a fundamental duty? That it is the job of the parent or guardian to provide opportunities for the education of his children between the age of 6 and 14 years. Finally, the directive principles of state policy also saw a change under the 86th Amendment. So which article was amended? Article 45. Okay. So what was added here? That now it shall be the endeavor of the state to provide early childhood care and education for children until they reach the age of 6 years, right? So in the fundamental rights chapter, the right has been given for children between 6 and 14. And in the directive principles chapter, the state is now being asked to endeavor. Remember, directive principles are not justiciable. So the state now has to endeavor to provide early childhood care and education for children below the age of 6 years. Okay, so these three changes made in the Constitution by the 86th Amendment Act. Okay, clear? Now, let's now move on to the next, which is also related to education. That is the Ullas scheme. Now, remember, there are two schemes. One is called Ullas, one is called Nipun, right? Both of these target different things. So, to learn more about this, we have Ananya ma'am back with us.
Okay. Now, see, why is the scheme important? It is because this particular scheme has been launched under NEP only. All right. So, Ullas is also launched under NEP, and as Sir mentioned, the previous scheme, which is Nipun, Nipun has also been launched under NEP. All right. Now, why this particular scheme is important is because it is in the current affairs right now. All right. Why is it in the current affair? You all can see here that we got the fifth state combined with union territories to be state in India to be fully literate under the Ullas program. All right, and all the other states also were declared this year only. All right, so that is why the scheme becomes important. So we'll quickly look into it. This time it was, I think, in September that Himachal Pradesh was declared as the fifth state fully functionally literate under Ullas. And before this, we had Mizoram, Tripura, Goa, and fourth state is Himachal Pradesh, and the UT is Ladakh. All right. So about Ullas, now you need to remember the full form of the scheme: understanding of lifelong learning for all in the society. New India Literacy Program. Now some of you get confused because sometimes it is written in Hindi also. Nav Bharat Saksharta Karyakram. All right. So Nav Bharat Saksharta Karyakram is the Hindi version of New India Literacy Program, and Ullas NILP is the entire name of the program. Okay, it is under Ministry of Education. The Minister of Education being Dharmendra Pradhan, part of NEP, and it is for 5 years. Now it is part of NEP, but it was launched 2 years after NEP. So it is for 5 years, and it was launched in 2022 for 5 years. So from 2022 till 2027, and the function is to make India fully functional literate. All right, and it has a certain number of target population, which is 5 crore. All right, so it has a 5 crore target population in the 5 years, and 1 crore population per annum is its annual target. All right. Okay. One more thing, that what do you actually understand by fully functionally literate? Now, here when you look at the target group of Ullas, the target group is adults of 15 years and above. All right. So, functionally literate meaning, now when we look at literacy in normal terms in India at national level, so it is anybody who's 7 years and above and can read and write in any one particular language is considered as literate in the country. All right. But under Ullas, it seeks to make people functionally literate, which means that in whatever language you are comfortable in, you must be able to read, write, understand, comprehend anything given to you in that particular language. Okay, so that is what functionally literate means. All right. Okay, now when you see here 15 years and above, so this particular scheme also seeks to promote adult literacy in the country who have missed schooling. Then it is a centrally sponsored scheme. The government at the center has two types of schemes. One is a centrally sponsored scheme, and one is a central sector scheme. A central sector scheme implies that the entire funding of the scheme is going to be undertaken by the central government. A centrally sponsored scheme, on the other hand, implies that part of the scheme is part of the funding is going to be borne by the central government and rest of it by the state government. So under a centrally sponsored scheme, there are three basic categories. One is for Himalayan states and northeastern states. One is for the other states, and one is for UTs. So in terms of Himalayan states and northeastern states, the funding ratio is 90 is to 10. 90% expenditure borne by the central government, 10% by the state government. For states, it is 60 is to 40, 60% by the central government, 40% by the other states. And for UTs, which are union territories, naturally the entire territory region is only under the central government. So 100% expenditure in terms of the union territories. All right. Okay. Then it has 5 components: foundational literacy and numeracy, critical life skills, basic education, vocational, skills and continuing education, that is to prevent dropouts. All right. Okay. Then we'll quickly move on to certain important schemes that were launched in 2025. All right. Now, for schemes, naturally, we have certain number of schemes which have completed a good significant number of years, like 10 years and 5 years. But mostly your focus should be on the schemes which were specifically launched this year. All right. Okay. So coming to the first scheme, the Pradhan Mantri Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana. Now, this scheme actually came into news and actually came into current affairs thrice in this entire year. For the first time, the scheme was announced in the union budget. Then the scheme was structured in July, and then it has been finally implemented in October. Okay. All right. So, what is the scheme? Naturally, it seeks to promote agricultural productivity in the country. What will it do? Enhance agriculture productivity, promote crop diversification, promote storage facilities, better storage facilities, improve irrigation, and also to facilitate credit availability to farmers. All right. Okay. Now, key features of the scheme. First thing, that it is for 6 years. The scheme is for 6 years. Mostly the schemes that the government launches is for 5 years, but this is a little different. It is for 6 years, beginning from 2025-26 to 2031-32. The aim of this scheme is to counter or to basically outline 100 low yielding districts in the country. These low yielding districts will be identified on three basic criteria: low productivity, low cropping intensity, and less credit disbursement. Now, the scheme also proposes that out of these 100 low yielding districts, a minimum of one district from each state has to be chosen, has to be selected, and other than that, obviously, we can have other districts also from that respective state. Then this particular scheme draws inspiration from Niti Aayog's aspirational district program. The scheme also says that it is going to converge 36 existing schemes across 11 departments. All right. Then the scheme and its progress of promoting better agriculture productivity in these 100 low yielding districts is going to be monitored on a monthly basis across 117 parameters. All right. So these are some things that you have to keep in mind with respect to the scheme. All right. Then coming to the next important scheme. This was also announced in the budget this year and it was implemented in October. And it is mission for Atmanirbharta in pulses. Now, why is this particular mission brought in, or why is it so important, is because that firstly, India, when you look at the diet of India, is mostly vegetarian. All right. And protein is a important source for all diets, be it vegetarians, be it non-vegetarians. So pulses actually forms the basis or the basic crux of the vegetarian diets in India. All right. Then surprisingly, India is also the largest producer of pulses in the country, and the state which produces the highest percentage of pulses is Madhya Pradesh. All right. So we are the largest producer of pulses. We are the largest consumer of pulses, and ironically, we are also the largest importer of pulses. All right. So because of this, we have to undertake better production of pulses to facilitate self-dependence and self-sufficiency in pulses. All right. So this was also launched this year, announced this year in the budget, and it has been implemented this year in October. All right. So, fatafat, we'll just look into the key features again. Like the previous scheme, this is also for 6 years. It has a financial outflow of 11,440 crores of rupees, and it seeks to boost pulse production and achieve self-sufficiency. All right. Okay. Then targets are important. Firstly, that it seeks to increase the area under pulses to 310 lakh hectares. All right. Seeks to expand the area under pulses by an additional 35 lakh hectares. Production increase to 350 lakh tons, and productivity yield to 130 kgs per hectare. All right. These are the basic key features of it. Moving forward, three major pulses are identified under the mission, which you have to keep in mind. One is turere, that is the yellow dal that we eat at home. One is urad and one is masoor. All right. These are the three key pulses that are recognized and that will be worked upon under this particular program. All right.
Okay, let's do a few things which are linked to this, both current as well as static. So the key usually is, I want to clarify it again, you need to know what the 17 SDGs are. Okay, so when it comes to food, which SDG is it? Tell me. It is SDG 2, okay, which is zero hunger. Okay, so SDG 2 is zero hunger. So this is relevant related topics for both of the last schemes which we just did. Okay, now number one, who is the Minister of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare in India? Anyone? Yes, it is Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Okay, so Shivraj Singh Chauhan is the Minister of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Okay, so that is one point to keep in mind. Zero hunger SDG is one point to keep in mind. Next, link it to FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, 80 years of FAO. Who is its Director General? Q Dongyu. Where is it headquartered? Rome. All the food bodies are in Rome. IFAD, FAO, as well as the World Food Program. Okay, so 80 years of FAO, that is another related topic. Next, the World Food Prize. So, who won it this year? I told you in my award session. Hungary, her surname has the word Hungary in it. What is her name? Maria Angela Hungria. Maria Angela Hungria is the winner of the latest World Food Prize. Next topic to link to this, 100th birth centenary of MS Swaminathan, the father of the Green Revolution in India, who was also awarded the Bharat Ratna last year. Okay, in fact, he was the first winner of the World Food Prize, which was created on the initiative of the father of the Green Revolution in the world, Norman Borlaug. Okay, so keep these points in mind. Further, one new prize has been created, the MS Swaminathan International Prize for Food and Peace. So, who is it that has won the inaugural MS Swaminathan Prize for Food and Peace? Anyone? It is Ademola Adenle. Okay, so these are some important related topics when it comes to food as well as agriculture. Acha, one miscellaneous point is on CACP. So, which is that body which recommends minimum support price in India? It is the CACP, the Commission on Agricultural Costs and Prices.
All right. And since we are on MSP, I can just keep in mind that the government declares MSP for 22 crops and FRP, that is fair and remunerative prices, for one crop, that is sugarcane. All right. And because we were still on hunger and zero hunger, etc., there is an index also that I have covered in the ranks and reports videos. So we had the global hunger index that was published this year, where India ranked 102. All right. So keep that also in mind. All right. Chalo. Now coming to the next one, PM Mitra scheme. Now this scheme was not launched this year, but this scheme actually seeks to establish textile parks in the country. All right. And since its inception, since its ideation, it was this year that for the first time, the first park has been inaugurated. All right. And that has been in Dhar district of MP. That is why the scheme becomes important. All right. So the first PM Mitra Park has been inaugurated in Madhya Pradesh and it is launched by Ministry of Textile and the Minister of Textile is Giriraj Singh. All right. So keep in mind his name. Now the scheme was launched in 2021 and it is a good 8-year long scheme. So it was after, since its launch in 2021, it was in 2025 that the first uh, textile park has been inaugurated. Acha, what is a textile park? A textile park simply implies a large contiguous region where a major factory of textile production is going to be set up, which seeks to align with the government's 5F vision. 5F vision क्या है? From farm to fiber to factory to fashion to foreign. All right. Basically, we want to become a major production country of textiles, and from production to a major exporting country of textiles and apparels. All right. Time period is 2021-22 to 2027-28. All right. So there were a total of 7 parks in 7 various sites that were announced by the government, and the first one of Madhya Pradesh in Dhar district has been inaugurated this year. What is the eligibility and selection criteria? That at least a contiguous land parcel of 1,000 acres must be available to set up these parks, which can be either greenfield or brownfield. Now, before you all get confused, greenfield is something which the government establishes or makes a fresh, मतलब एकदम नया कोई चीज establish किया है. And brownfield means that something was in existence before, the government just modified or revamped it. All right. So greenfield means a new project, brownfield means a revamped project. All right. Okay. Then coming to the next one, which is Semicon India 2025. Now, Semicon or Semiconductor Mission of India was also launched in 2021, and it had a total budget outlay of 76,000 crore. All right. And it is under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. And as sir mentioned in the beginning only, the Minister for Niti is Ashwini Vaishnav. All right. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of semicon? Now, semiconductors is a very important aspect of technology these days. All right. And as of now, the country which produces or dominates the semiconductor market is Taiwan. And other than Taiwan, we also have other major producers like North Korea, etc. So India also seeks to become a semiconductor producing country. So naturally, we could export it, all right, and expand our market. So this mission was launched in 2021, and this year, and under the mission, obviously, the government has held various conferences. So this year, September, we also had another semicon conference. I think this was the third or the fourth one. What are the various provisions under the semicon initiative? So one is production linked incentive, where the government offers around 50% fiscal support for production of semiconductors. All right. Then we have another initiative, which is the design linked initiative, where the government provides certain incentives to support startups and innovations for designing of semiconductors. All right. So this year, Semicon India 2025 was organized, and it was organized under the India Semiconductor Mission, under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and SEMI, the Global Semiconductor Industry Association. All right. And it was here that the government actually showcased this, which is Vikram 3201 processor. And this is India's first made in India semiconductor chip. All right. So Vikram 32-bit processor was developed, and this was developed by ISRO, and this is mostly for satellites. All right. It is supposed to be used in satellites, which will be covered in the space session also that we will be conducting. So just a little basic into Vikram 3201 processor, that it is indigenously made. That is why it was showcased for the first time. It is a 16-bit processor, and obviously seeks to aid the launch vehicles of ISRO. All right. 32. It is a 32-bit. Acha. Okay. This is the first one, all right. The Vikram, the 16-bit processor was the first one, and it was this particular one is a more improved and revamped version of it, which is the 32-bit. All right. And this is a fully make in India 32-bit processor, and it has been developed jointly by Vikram Sarabhai Space Center of ISRO and the Semiconductor Laboratory in Chandigarh. Okay. All right. Then coming to the next launch this year, this was also announced in the budget, which is the National Manufacturing Mission. All right. Okay. So quickly looking into it, this has been launched to give a boost to small, medium, and large industries, furthering the government's aim of make in India, create in India, design in India. All right. So the policy has five basic key areas like ease and cost of doing business, future ready work forces, vibrant and dynamic MSME sector, availability of technology, quality products. The scheme will support the design capacity, the support design, capacity, component manufacturing, etc. is expected to facilitate employment for 22 lakh persons, generate a turnover of 4 lakh crore and exports of 1.1 lakh crore. Okay. All right. Launched by Ministry of Finance. Generally, the schemes are not launched by Ministry of Finance in India, but this particular scheme has been launched by Ministry of Finance. And the Minister of Finance, I hope everybody knows her because she actually brought in the Achhe Din finally, and that is through her revamped GST or GST 2.0. So it is none other than Nirmala Sitharaman. All right. And along with this, just to give a major boost to the manufacturing sector in India, a national action plan for toys has also been proposed. For toys, the government already has a previous initiative, which was I think in 2023 or 22, that the government had launched Toycathon. All right, Toycathon to promote the indigenous toys of India. All right, and along with that, also a National Institute of Food Technology, Entrepreneurship and Management has been proposed in Bihar. All right, so this is one thing that has been proposed in Bihar, and also there was a proposal and which has been materialized also, which is the setting up of National Board for Makhana. All right, so Makhana of the Mithilanchal region in Bihar is a GI tagged good, and for that the Makhana board was also established. All right. Okay. Then coming to the National Critical Mission. The National Critical Mission was also launched in 2025. And why? To make India self-reliant in critical mineral sector. Now, critical minerals are basically those minerals which are very important in things like technology, like making of semiconductors, etc. So these are your critical minerals. So what is the objective? To secure India's critical mineral supply chain, ensuring mineral availability, strengthening the value chains by enhancing technological, regulatory, financial ecosystems to foster innovation, exploration, beneficiation, etc. of critical minerals in the country. All right. Now, under this scheme, which has been aligned with the Geological Survey of India, the Ministry of Mines has been tasked with conducting 1200 exploration projects. Now, this 1200 exploration project announcement was also made by the Prime Minister during his Independence Day speech. All right, and this is also again from 2024, 25, 2030, 31. All right, this particular thing has been undergoing and is in process of working since the last year only. All right, both national and international exploration projects will be undertaken under these 1200 exploration projects. They're inclusive of national and international, and at the national level, obviously it will be undertaken by Ministry of Mines, and at the international level, Ministry of Mines is going to collaborate with Ministry of External Affairs. All right. Okay, these are the basic components of the critical mineral mission. You all can quickly go through it. All right, then coming to a committee was formed by Ministry of Mines in November 2022, which identified around 30 critical minerals, and they were aligned with Schedule 1 of Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act 1957. Keep in mind the name of this act. It is this particular act which aligns exploration of minerals in the country. All right. The scheme also recommended setting up of a center of excellence on critical minerals, and critical minerals are essential for clean energy technologies like solar panels, etc. All right. Then coming to another major initiative that was undertaken by the government this year, which is the Gyan Bharatam initiative. All right. Now, the purpose of Gyan Bharatam is simply to document the various literary records, manuscripts, heritage of the country. All right. So, it is an initiative launched to survey, document, conserve India's rich literary records or manuscript heritage. All right. It focuses on the following. It is obviously under Ministry of Culture, and they have put in a major budget under National Mission for Manuscripts to around 60 crore. All right. This was also ideated and announced again by the Prime Minister during the Independence Day scheme, during the Independence Day speech, although it was announced in the budget also this year. All right. Okay. This is its basic aim to identify, document, etc., manuscript heritage, and to make manuscripts accessible to researchers, scholars, etc. Okay. Then, just one more thing with respect to the manuscripts that you have to keep in mind, and that is this particular initiative. Under this particular initiative, the Indian government is also going to make use of artificial intelligence. All right. AI is going to be incorporated in the Gyan Bharatam mission to preserve these manuscripts and actually to make them accessible to everybody through a virtual platform. All right. One more thing with relation to this that you have to keep in mind is a similar initiative has been undertaken by UNESCO also at the national international level, which is Memory of the World program, which was incepted by UNESCO in 1992, and this year India has had two entries, which is uh, the Natya Shastra by Bharat Muni and Bhagavad Gita by Ved Vyas. All right. So similar on the grounds of this thing, Memory of the World program, which seeks to bring together the heritage and every literally audio visual manuscripts, etc., at the global level. The same thing India is also going to do with the Gyan Bharata project. All right. So this was everything in with respect to the important schemes that were launched this year, and something new that happened with certain schemes that were in that had been implemented since before. All right. So I hope it was a good, fruitful session for you all. Any additions?
No, all right. Thank you, everyone. Just make sure you go through the video, go through these important schemes, 2 or 3 anniversaries, and then the new updates on various schemes, the new schemes launched. Most important is to link these together with the other things we do in GK. So if we did schemes, link it to its national day, to its international day, to the top prize, to the top days which happened in the year. That is the right path to do GK. So I hope you all found this informative, and we'll see you all soon tomorrow, I think, for the next session of the last lap revision. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.